What are you communicating to the president and the White House about what you need and again, we don't have a budget request from you, so I'm not sure what you're asking us for.
I'm not asking you for anything at this time.
You can operate without a budget?
I never said that.
Well, this is...
Just now, Patty Murray made a move that no one expected. She didn't waste time, didn't beat around the bush. There was no soft entry or anything. He entered the Senate Intelligence Committee hearing, took his seat, opened the red folder with classified written on it in big letters, and looked directly at Kash Patel without blinking. The room suddenly went silent. You all know that moment when the atmosphere suddenly changes just before something big happens? Exactly like that. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe now and turn on notifications, because what will happen in the next 12 minutes will be replayed on every news channel tonight. You should be the first to see it.
Senate Hart Building, Room 216, wood-paneled walls, C-SPAN cameras set up from 3 different angles. The gallery was packed. Journalists had arrived early, as if everyone had sensed that this would not be a routine oversight. Kash Patel was sitting at the witness stand, dark suit, red tie, that familiar expression on his face, calm, measured, as if to say, I am in control. The studied calmness of someone who has passed through this scene hundreds of times and knows by heart how to maneuver here. Next to him, 3 lawyers, 2 assistants in the back. Classic arrangement, complete. Patty Murray entered the Senate late, but not late, more like a deliberate timing. He had known this committee and this atmosphere for years, yet today was different. He was carrying a single file, red, thick, heavy, and the way he places it on the table, slowly, carefully, as if he wants everyone to see it. At that moment, you realize there is something in this folder that Patel would never want to come to light. The first 40 minutes were the usual routine. The budgets of FBI field offices, personnel reallocations, counterterrorism briefings, classic questions from committee members, classic answers. Patel flowed effortlessly. That's what he always does. He stretches time, but doesn't seem to be stretching it. He glanced at his watch once, adjusted his microphone twice. There was that slightly strained expression on his face that screamed, let's wrap this up. Then it was Murray's turn. Director Patel, he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. Like the calm before the storm. I want to talk about the classification protocols. I want to talk about classification protocols. I want to talk about classification protocols. Patel nodded with a slight head movement. Of course, Senator. Of course, Senator. Especially, Murray continued. I want to understand why some documents that were previously deemed suitable for congressional review were reclassified after you became FBI director. Especially, Murray continued, I want to understand why some documents that were previously deemed appropriate for congressional review were reclassified after you became FBI director. Patel's face didn't change, but if you look closely, you notice that his left hand is pressing a bit harder on the table. Senator, he said, classification reviews are routine processes conducted within the framework of internal requirements. I'm not asking about routine procedures. Murray's voice barely changed, just a bit firmer. I am asking for specific documents. I'm asking for specific documents. And at that moment, he opened the red folder. The atmosphere in the hall suddenly changed. That energy shift I mentioned earlier, it's doubled now. On March 22 of this year, Murray said, never taking his eyes off the first page, your office sent a directive to the FBI's Classification Review Board. That directive orders a re-review of all documents in what you call sensitive, ongoing matters involving current and former government officials on an expedited basis. This directive orders the expedited review of all documents on the topics you referred to as sensitive, ongoing matters involving current and former government officials. Patel didn't move, almost like a statue. Senator, without seeing the document you mentioned, you don't need to see it, Director. Murray interrupted, because your signature is on it. Because your signature is underneath. The room was locked. It was neither a silence born of politeness, nor a silence of, we are listening. The kind that weighs down on you. The kind that tightens your chest. Murray pulled out a second piece of paper. This memo. The signature is here, at the bottom. Do you want me to lift it for the cameras? One of the lawyers next to Patel immediately leaned in and whispered something. Patel silenced him with a slight nod. Senator, Patel said, carefully choosing his words. Classification decisions are based on national security assessments, ongoing investigation interests, and to protect powerful people from accountability, Murray concluded. Based on established criteria. Based on established criteria. The sentence hung in the air, like smoke no one could swallow. Patel's jaw tightened. He doesn't show it much, but it's there. I categorically reject this characterization. I categorically reject this characterization. Then help me understand this. Murray turned another page. Because according to this internal FBI memo I obtained through a whistleblower complaint, 37 documents were reclassified between March and July. 37. They had all been approved for disclosure beforehand. And they all have one thing in common. They contain information about people in positions of power. And they all have one thing in common. They contain information about people in positions of power. He looked into Patel's eyes. This is not national security, Director. This, a recurring pattern. Patel tried to regroup and regain control. Senator Murray, he said, with all due respect, you have incomplete information, and you are drawing sweeping conclusions from that incompleteness. FBI's classification protocols. I'm not talking about the protocol, Murray interjected, his voice cutting through like a knife. I'm talking about what a whistleblower from the Classification Review Board has said. He was so disturbed that he came to this committee with the evidence he had. He was so disturbed that he came to this committee with the evidence in his hand. Then he pulled out another document. This time, the file was filled with colorful tabs sticking out from the edges. This, said Murray, is a sworn statement from an FBI analyst. I won't read their names. They requested anonymity, and my office approved. But I will read some parts of their statements here so that they are on record. However, I will read some parts of the statements here, just to have them on record. A buzz broke out in the gallery. The journalists were already glued to their phones. One of the C-SPAN cameras moved in closer to Murray's folder. Murray began reading, quote, I have 15 years at the FBI. I have never seen such a systematic effort to reclassify documents that had already been approved for disclosure. The instruction came directly from the director's office. We were instructed to prioritize all documents that mention certain names. When I asked, why? I was told national security, but the documents presented to me had nothing to do with national security. Witness statements, visitor entry-exit records, and correspondence. Witness statements, visitor entry-exit records, and correspondence. Murray lifted his head and looked at Patel. Does it look familiar to you, Director? Patel's face had changed several times in the last half minute. First surprise, then a quick calculation, followed by anger. Now, he donned that nothing is happening mask that cornered politicians wear. Senator, he said, it would not be appropriate for me to comment on allegations made by an unnamed person. Senator, he said, it would not be appropriate for me to comment on allegations made by an unnamed person. Okay, said Murray. Then let me be more clear. He turned another tab. I will tell you one by one which documents have been reclassified. I will tell you one by one which documents have been reclassified. The hall suddenly fell completely silent. Believe me, even the journalists stopped typing at that moment. Document Alpha 72. Visitor entry and exit logs maintained at a private address in Palm Beach, Florida. It had previously been approved for release in 2019. In April 2025, it was reclassified following your directive. In April 2025, it was reclassified following your directive. Patel's hands were now flat on the table. He was pressing down hard with his fingers. Document Beta 39. A witness statement taken from a person working at the same address. Previously approved. Reclassified in May. Reclassified in May. Reclassified in May. One of the committee members who I couldn't identify was literally holding their breath. Document Charlie 5-1. Flight manifest showing the travel arrangements of multiple individuals between 2002 and 2015. It was previously approved. It was reclassified in June. Reclassified in June. Murray continued without taking his eyes off Patel. A total of 12 documents, Director. They are all part of the same investigation. It was said that they could all be explained before, and all of them were reclassified as secret within months of you taking office. And all of them were reclassified as secret within months of you taking office. He paused for a moment. He wanted the weight of the sentence to linger in the room. Now you are saying that classification decisions are made for national security reasons. Then tell me this, Director Patel, what national security interest is served by keeping visitor records from 15 years ago? Then tell me this, Director Patel, what national security interest is served by keeping visitor logs from 15 years ago? Patel opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Senator, without personally seeing the documents in question, a detailed, you don't need to see it, Murray interrupted, because you are the one who issued the reclassification order. Because you are the one who issued the reclassification order. The atmosphere in the room had officially changed. It was no longer a case of Murray asks the questions, Patel answers. Everyone present, the spectators, the note-taking journalists, the committee members leaning forward in their chairs, felt they were witnessing a significant turning point. Murray spoke in a lower voice this time. But strangely, it was even more effective. Director Patel, he said, I will ask you a very straightforward question. Did you personally order the reclassification of documents associated with Jeffrey Epstein's circle? Did you personally give the order to reclassify the documents associated with Jeffrey Epstein's circle? The name fell into the middle of the room like a heavy stone. Epstein. That connection that had been whispered in the corridors for months, but no one had dared to openly mention in official records. According to the narrative, it was being directly articulated here for the first time. Patel's face suddenly turned pale. Under the lights, it was noticeable that I'm in control expression cracked for a brief moment. Senator, he said, weighing his words. The FBI does not make classification decisions based on names. We follow established protocols. We implement established protocols. Let's not go back to the same place, Murray said. His voice never rose, but it was sharper and more resolute now. I didn't ask you about protocol. Did you order the reclassification of documents related to Epstein's associates? Yes or no? And at that moment, 20 seconds passed. 20 seconds in a courtroom may seem short from the outside. Inside, it feels like 20 hours. The moment when the witness says, I don't have a good answer, is sometimes conveyed not by words, but by silence. That image, which everyone says he's cornered, is sometimes captured in a single expression. Patel finally spoke. His voice was now lower, more defensive. Senator Murray, the management of sensitive materials is not as simple as a yes or no question. It involves multi-layered assessments, includes multi-layered evaluations. Then, as if leaving the sentence unfinished, he added, to this question, I cannot answer without jeopardizing the process. Murray didn't expect it at all. Can't you answer? Or won't you answer? Patel fell silent again. Murray slowly nodded, as if he were confirming something he already knew, once again on live television. Then let me make it easier for you, he said. He produced another document. This one was different. 1 page, no tabs, no marks. He raised the page in the air so that everyone, including the cameras, could see it clearly. This is a list of names, 17 names. These names appear in the documents that were reclassified after your directive. They are all somehow connected to Jeffrey Epstein, and they are all Director Patel, powerful people, politicians, names from the business world, donors, politicians, business figures, donors. He left the paper on the table. I will not read these names aloud here, not today, because unlike you, I believe in the procedure. But I will submit this list to the committee record under seal, and I will ask you to explain under oath. Why did these specific names require previously declassified documents to be reclassified as secret? And I will ask you to explain under oath, why did these specific names require the previously declassified documents to be reclassified as secret? Patel reflexively looked at his lawyers, but there was nothing there. There was no one to hand her a note, no one to lean in and whisper in her ear. At that moment, he was all alone. Senator, he said slowly, I want to be very clear. The FBI does not make decisions to protect individuals. Our only concern, then the documents will be revealed. Then the documents will be revealed. The sentence was short, straightforward, and harsh, and that's exactly why it was difficult to answer. This decision is solely mine. You are the FBI director, Murray cut in. You have the authority to declassify. You did this before when it suited you. Then do it now too. Open the documents. The American people should see what is in those visitor logs, what is in those witness statements, what is in those flight manifests. Let the American people see what is in those visitor logs. Let them see what is in those witness statements. Let them see what is in those flight manifests. Murray leaned forward. Of course, if there's no logical reason for you not to want it. Of course. If there are no names in those documents that would cause headaches for the people you are trying to protect. Of course. If there are no names in those documents that will cause headaches for the people you are trying to protect. The accusation hung in the middle of the room. This was not a veiled reference. It was something said outright to his face. Patel's hands began to tremble slightly at this point, a small tremor, but not one to be missed. Senator Murray, the implications you made, he began. I'm not implying anything, Director, Murray interrupted. I'm just stating the obvious. 37 documents, previously approved for release, reclassified under your supervision. They are all connected to the same investigation line. And in all of them, somehow, the names of powerful individuals are mentioned. And in all of them, somehow, the names of powerful people are mentioned. He gathered the papers in front of him. Even that gesture was like a message. And you, he said, sitting here today, cannot provide a single legitimate reason why these documents should still remain classified. And you, he said, are sitting here today, unable to present a single legitimate reason why these documents should remain classified. National security? What we're talking about are visitor logs from a decade ago. National security? What we're talking about are visitor logs from a decade ago. An ongoing investigation? Epstein is dead. Maxwell is inside. There is no file you can rely on that is ongoing. N. There's no file in the middle that you can rely on as ongoing. His voice rose a bit. The words became clearer. So what are you hiding? Who are you protecting? And why should the American people trust an FBI director who uses classification rules as a shield to keep the powerful from being held accountable? Then what are you hiding? Who are you protecting? And why should the American people trust an FBI director who uses classification rules as a shield to keep the powerful from being held accountable? The hearing continued on paper, of course. The other senators took turns moving on to different topics. A bit of cybersecurity, a bit of field office personnel, a bit of routine agenda. But the truth is, no one was really there. No one was really listening, because Patty Murray had done something that no one had dared to do for months. In front of everyone, in front of the cameras, he had connected the dots in a way that would be recorded. The Kash Patel and Jeffrey Epstein line. Not an implication, not a word. A congressional inquiry backed by an insider whistleblower statement and internal FBI notes. According to the narrative, within minutes, clips spread every place. X, Twitter was buzzing, clips flew on TikTok, and cable news interrupted their regular programming. Legal commentators immediately focused on the same point. Does this lead to a discussion of obstruction or abuse of power? And at the FBI headquarters, somewhere, probably everyone was thinking the same thing at the same time. How are we going to respond to this? Because at that moment, even if it wasn't panic for the institution, it was truly crisis management mode. But now I need to stop and say this clearly. That's the main issue. This story is not just about Kash Patel. It's not even just about the FBI. What we are talking about here is a system that protects the powerful. A system where evidence is somehow buried, documents are stamped reclassified, and the truth is locked behind the national security veil, which has little to do with security, but a lot to do with power. What Patty Murray did was exactly that. She made this arrangement visible. She didn't imply, she didn't beat around the bush. He put the document on the table and said, "Answer." And Patel sat under the cameras and lights. He sweated, fidgeted, but couldn't come up with a single solid reason to satisfy the viewer. What happens next? To be honest, I don't know either. Maybe nothing will happen. Maybe, like everything else, the agenda will flow, be covered up, and people will turn to something else. But what if he doesn't come back? Maybe this is the breaking point. Maybe Murray lit a fuse that is hard to extinguish. Maybe the pressure to explain grows so much that taking a step back becomes impossible. Because Patel has no escape route left, he has to explain each of the 37 reclassifications one by one. He has to go out and look people in the eye and say it's completely routine. Good luck. Because what has been presented today does not seem like a coincidence. It does not seem like a routine inspection either. The picture being described is a pattern, an allegation of a deliberate and systematic effort to avoid information that could be linked to Jeffrey Epstein, especially details involving powerful individuals. And now this claim is backed by an oath, documents, and congressional records. The wall is cracking. The pressure is increasing. Hiding places are becoming scarce. Moreover, everything lasted only 3 minutes. The time it took for Murray to ask the questions that no one dared to ask, and for Patel to provide the answers he clearly didn't want to give. 3 minutes. The documents are on the table. It is claimed that the names are in those files, and the barrier between the American people and the truth is the image of an FBI director cornered on national television. Truth sometimes comes out like this, in a trial, in a one-page document, from the mouth of a brave senator. But I will repeat it, so it won't be missed. Although this is told as Patel's personal story, at its center, there is no one man. At the center, there is the reflex of power protecting itself. There is an allegation of a mechanism where evidence is kept under lock and key, time is gained with a secret label, and the public's approach to the truth is hindered. What Murray did was hold a projector to that mechanism. He said, the document is here, the date is here, the number is here. Patel, on the other hand, couldn't sit there and establish a convincing framework to present it as a routine procedure. Maybe it will dissolve, maybe it will grow. But one thing is certain, Patel has a list of questions in front of him, and there's no escaping. He has to explain the reasoning behind those 37 decisions. He has to brush it off by saying, routine. I wish you luck. Because what the viewer sees is not a random inspection, it is a repeating pattern. And this pattern strengthens the claim that the information crumbs leading to Epstein were redacted at the points where they touched particularly powerful names. This is now on record. Now, this is a place where they can no longer say, no one asked. The wall is cracking, the truth finds its way, and the spaces where Patel can hide are narrowing. 3 minutes. Sometimes, the most dangerous thing in Washington is just that, asking the question clearly and demanding an answer.